Greetings all. Welcome to part 4 of my Ambient Guitar Loop Challenge series. If you've seen any of the earlier parts, you probably know that this is a series of videos in which I attempt to utilize different software packages to recreate an ambient guitar loop that I made originally using amp modeling hardware and a series of effects pedals. So if you haven't seen any of those parts, check them out, part 1 through 3. In particular, check out part 1 so you can see how I built the hardware-based loop. In this episode, I'm going to create a loop using Adobe Audition, the Creative Cloud version of that product. I should note that Adobe Audition is cross-platform, so it runs on either Windows or Mac. So what you're seeing here is Mac, but it's totally applicable to the Windows platform too. So let's go ahead and get right down to it. First thing I want to point out is that I've created a new project and set the tempo to 60 beats per minute, and I've set the time signature to 3/4. And this is consistent with the other versions of this loop. The next thing I've done is pulled in my two prior recorded guitar parts. Let me go ahead and pull them into the multi-track environment here so you can hear them. These were both recorded direct into my audio card, just plugging my guitar direct into the audio card, no effects, and here's what it sounds like. Okay, if you've heard if you've watched the other videos, pretty familiar sounding. You'll note that they are both different lengths, and there is one measure of nothing, of silence. So I need to go and trim both of these files or these parts to the exact length I'm looking for to actually create the loop. So what I want to do is create a 10 measure loop that begins actually here at what is currently measure 2. So to do that in Adobe Audition, I'm going to double click on each file individually, and I'm going to go ahead and trim it. So you'll see here that I've got the first part, and I'm going to select from measure 2 to, whoop, I lost my mouse there, sorry about that. I am constantly mouse challenged. Don't know what that is. And I'm going to drag it up to the beginning of measure 12. So 2 to 12, that gives me a length of 10 measures. I'm going to right-click on the selected area and select Copy to New. This is actually going to create a new version of the file that's trimmed. I'm going to select my second part. And it's already selected here, but let me go ahead and reselect. I'm going to select the same range, right-click, and again, select Copy to New. Now I have two different files here that you'll see, D3 and D4. So let me go ahead back to the multi-track view. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the original files. And I'm going to pull the trimmed versions into the 2 tracks. So there we go. Exactly 10 measures long. That's great. And then then to actually create the loops, all I need to do is select each of the audio clips or the files, right-click, and select the loop option. And you'll see that a loop icon appears on each clip. Now, if I go to the end of each clip and click and drag, you'll see that I can now begin to create my loops. And Adobe Audition indicates a loop by the presence of a dotted vertical line. So let's listen to that real quickly. All right, I've got a loop, and at this point I'm ready now to group my 2 tracks together. Again, I want to create a group so that I can affect both tracks at once with one set of effects. The way we're going to do that in Audition is to add a stereo bus track. So I'm going to select the multi-track menu option, select track, and then select add stereo bus track. And I'm going to drag that bus track all the way up to the top, and I'm going to go ahead and rename it. All right. What I need to do now is assign guitar 1 and guitar 2, there we go, to this particular bus. Hey, what's going on there? That's weird. Let me go ahead and increase the width here. All right. So I told you I was mouse and keyboard challenged. Whew. It's tough when you get old. Here we go. So what I'm going to do to reassign the output of each track is simply click on the output setting and switch from master. I'm going to select bus and then guitar bus. Let me do the second track here. All right, so both guitar 1 and guitar 2, both tracks are now routing through the guitar bus. Let me go ahead and play it. You'll see the meter move here on the bus. All right, perfect. What I want to do now is begin building my effects rack, or my set of effects that are going to give me the ambient sound and tone that I'm looking for. So again, in Audition, I'm going to make use of the effects rack over here on the left-hand navigation area. So I'll click on effects rack. I've got the guitar bus channel selected. You'll see here that the track changes in the effects rack. So I'm going to select guitar bus, and I'm going to begin adding effects. In order to speed things up for the video, I've actually created a set of effects and saved that chain as a preset. So let me go ahead and pull that in, and you'll see that I've got six, I can count 6 effects. So let me quickly go through each one. We'll see what they do and how they add to the ambient tone and sound that I'm looking for. And by the way, these are all out-of-the-box effects. They come stock with Adobe Audition. First one we're going to look at is the Guitar Suite. This is essentially a simple amp modeling effect. And we've got compressor, filter, distortion, and amplifier areas of the effect. I want to go ahead and use the compressor because I want to squash the dynamic range a little bit. So I'm going to set that to about 41 or so %. I'm going to leave the filter set to bypass. I don't want any ring modulation or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and bypass the distortion. And I'm going to leave the amplifier set to the clean American Jazz model. Okay, so let me go ahead and play the signal dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn the effect on. You'll be able to hear the difference. Okay, so a little more oomph to the tone, and you can hear that the compressor is squashing the dynamic range a little bit. Exactly what I want. Okay, next thing I want to do is add in some delay. Again, this effects chain mirrors what I did in the original hardware loop. So in terms of getting delay, I'm going to make use of the Audition analog delay effect. Let's take a peek at that. Pretty simple effect. We have some different modes here: tape, tape tube, and analog, which are all really nice sounding. I'm going to leave it set to tape. Leave dry and wet out, the mix of dry out and wet out as it is. I'm going to set the delay to 500 milliseconds, which mirrors the original loop. Add a little feedback for repeats. I'm going to turn the trash, which is actually a distortion option, down. and leave the spread set to the current setting. Let's go ahead and listen to this delay. All right, so we're getting a little bit of a delay tail going, which is great. The third effect I want to add is actually a second delay. And this delay I'm going to leave set pretty much the same as the first, except I'm going to set it to 400 milliseconds, which is 80% of the original delay time. This will give me a delay that actually delays the delay, so to speak. Let's go ahead and listen to the combination of both together. Okay, we're getting some nice delay smearing going on, and as you can hear, the tail, the decay tail, is getting a little bit longer. So that's great. Where I want to go next is adding some stereo chorus to widen out the overall sound. So I'm going to use the chorus effect that comes with Audition, and I've got a stereo patch here set up with a fairly short delay time and delay rate, no feedback, a little bit of spread, and a little bit of modulation in the chorus. What you'll see here, though, that I have is 100% setting on the stereo field slider in the stereo width area. This is going to give me a lot of width to the tone. Let's take a listen to this. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So that's great. I've got some smeared delay going on, a little bit of a delay tail, and I've got a nice width in my sound now with the stereo chorus. Again, as I follow the model of the original hardware loop, what I want to do next is actually add a third delay in. I'm going to use Adobe Audition's echo effect. Let's take a peek at that. You'll note that the echo effect has both a left and right channel, so it can function as a stereo delay. So you've got a lot of options here. I'm going to use it very simply and set both channels to 2000 milliseconds, which is the max. Leave the feedback up a little bit more than halfway. Actually, I'm going to pull that back to just about half. And I'm going to pull the echo level down closer to half also. Actually, I changed my mind. Let me pull the feedback up to about 60%. Okay, this effect also has a filter section where you can actually change the filtering, the EQ, on the repeats. So right now we've got a lot of the low end taken out. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of that back in, just to create a bit of a fuller repeat situation. Okay, so let's go ahead and listen to what this adds to our loop. All right, that adds quite a bit. You can hear that delay tail, the decay, is quite extended now. And it actually runs into the next volume swell of the guitar itself. So that's great. The last effect in the chain to complete this loop and make it fairly similar to the original hardware loop is to add some reverb. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Adobe Audition Studio Reverb effect. And I'm going to use a fairly good-sized reverb room. So I've got room size set up to 70. Let's go ahead and move that up to about 80. About right there, 77.5. And we're going to leave the decay set to about 5,000 milliseconds. So a pretty good long decay. We'll pull the early reflections down just a bit, move the width up a little bit, and this particular reverb does have a filter section for high and low frequency cut. So I'm going to actually pull the low cut down a little bit so we fill out the reverb itself. And we'll leave the other options set as is. So let me go ahead and power that up, and let's go ahead and listen to it. Okay, so there you have it, an ambient guitar loop that is reasonably close to that original guitar loop I did using my Avid 11-rack modeler and a series of effects pedals, including the Strymon timeline delay effect. This has been a really good series for me just to exercise these 3 different pieces of software, recording software, to see how close I can get. Hopefully it's been of use to you to see the different techniques that are used, the different flavors, I guess I could say, of building these loops. And hopefully you'll see some value in knowing how to build loops in software. In particular, again, I really like the ability to precisely dial in the tempo of each loop and to be able to control that in a in a very precise way. That brings a lot of advantages to the mix as you're building a song. Anyhow, go ahead and play with it. If you've got a different DAW, a different piece of DAW software, I'd be really interested to hear if you have success creating loops using that software. So leave me some comments on this video or any of the other videos in the series, and I will see you next time around.